Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, I really wanted to learn about transcendental meditation. Do you know anything about this? I know a teeny tiny little bit about it, but I knew that, my two heroes, my two sort of reasons for doing anything and everything, Jerry Seinfeld and Howard Stern, had practiced transcendental meditation since the dawn of time, and, if they did it, it was something I wanted to give a go. Not only that, but the guys in the Beatles were all about it. So in general, it seems like a lot of people that are successful at being creative practice transcendental meditation. So I was all about it. But here's the thing. Back in the day when Howard Stern learned how to do it and Jerry Seinfeld learned how to do it, it wasn't like this big brouhaha. It wasn't something that you had to pay for. I think Jerry Seinfeld said he learned about it at Queens College at a free class, and he's been practicing it the same way ever since. And now you got to go, you got to sign up, you got to commit to classes. It costs a whole bunch of money. And it was just one of those things where even if I could afford the luxury of the money to do it, I couldn't necessarily afford the luxury of the time to do it. So, and by the way, I know people that swear by this sort of practice will tell me, hey, you really got to make time for this sort of thing, because if you can't make time for it, then really, where are you anyway? Okay, I got it. I understand. Maybe one of these years I'll get to it. But I had a little bit of insight. Into a meditation app made by a very well-known person that had practiced transcendental meditation for a long time. And he didn't say it was transcendental meditation, but he basically said, you might want to give this a go, and you might find that you never need anything else. So basically, he was sort of skirting the meditation copyright law, I suppose you could call it, not calling it transcendental meditation, but saying it's really transcendental meditation, and I'm just giving it away. And I was all excited. I was all excited for this. And I was all excited to learn how it was used. And, there was a snag to the situation. Because this person made a free app. So far, so good. Sounding really great, right? This person made a free app. And this guy was also responsible for many, many things that I'd really admired. Creatively speaking, he'd put a lot of things that I really cared about deeply on the map. And he'd also created this transcendental meditation-esque thing app. So I go to download it, and I'm just about to dive in and start learning this guy's meditation techniques, because gosh knows I need a way to unwind and relax, and anything that gets me closer to being Jerry Seinfeld or Howard Stern or the Beatles is a good thing. And and then the most awkward thing happened. And you know what? I know a lot of people that use this app that learned how to meditate from this app and say it's a fantastic and wonderful educational resource. And if you use it enough times, you actually don't need it anymore, and you've learned how to meditate independently of it, and it's great. But here's the thing. I just couldn't bring myself to use this app because it starts with a guy's voice in your ear. I'd started to listen to it. I'd never really given it a full go, but I put it in, and you listen to this guy, and this guy tells you to breathe in a certain way and to, concentrate on certain things. And he sort of sets the stage for you learning how to meditate properly. But there is a very big problem, because right around the time I got this app, this guy was Me Too'd. This guy was accused of sexual assault, possibly rape. And initially it was only one person. There was only one person that accused him of this. And, he fervently denied it. And then another accusation came out, and yet another accusation came out, and the laundry list went on. And I just couldn't learn how to meditate with this guy in my ear telling me to breathe deeply and tune out. And that guy was Russell Simmons, who, like I said, was responsible for putting a lot of things that I cared deeply about on the map. Beastie Boys, Run DMC, all of Def Jam, and, when he was accused multiple times of sexual assault. Whether or not he was guilty of these things, I just couldn't get it out of my mind and make use of his app. So I'm still looking for another way to get into the world of transcendental meditation. Because after multiple accusations, I just can't bring myself to relax when a potential multiple rapist tells me in my ear to relax. Now, this isn't proven. And when it was only one accusation, I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but as they started to mount up, it became more and more difficult to ignore. Something that we're seeing play out in a political arena right now. What are we talking about? We'll get into it next. Thank you for joining me.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So, you and I are, of course, talking about Kavanaugh and the mounting number of accusations against him. Now, you might be dead set against Kavanaugh. You might be Kavanaugh all the way. You might think this is absolute garbage being trumped up against him at the last moment. But either way, trust me on this one, you want him to testify. You want him to go through the ringer. You want all of these things that are playing out right now to happen, whether you're for him or against him. Raking him over the coals, not a bad idea. But first, let's back up and discuss exactly what the state of play is at the moment. 2 women have come forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. The lawyer who gained all sorts of national notoriety, Michael Avenatti, when he represented Stormy Daniels, who allegedly was paid to stay silent about an alleged affair with the president of these United States of America, Donald Trump. Well, Michael Avenatti says he has credible evidence of a third incident of sexual assault implicating Kavanaugh. Here's the thing. There's still no indication that Kavanaugh's confirmation proceedings will be slowing down all that much in the U.S. Senate. Now, let's discuss what we know about the accusations, shall we? And by the way, I bring this up because, well, look, as we've discovered certain Me Too accusations over the last 6 months to a year, some of them have stuck and some of them have gone away very quickly. Maynard James Keenan of Tool was accused of all sorts of horrendous stuff, and, well, that got shot down mighty quickly because it didn't seem as though there was anything really credible to these accusations. Meanwhile, Louis C.K., well, we know how that ended. Bill Cosby, we know how that ended. There's a couple of blurrier situations. Garrison Keillor, there's only really ever one accusation. And, well, what happened to Garrison Keillor sort of stands as a bit of a cautionary tale because while there was one accusation, while there was never any kind of legal proceeding, that guy lost absolutely everything. And people have looked at that and gone, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But, boy, the justice that was handed out was certainly swift and definitive, and there's not a ton of evidence to back it up. Maybe we need to be a little bit more careful, and maybe we need to dig a little deeper in these situations. And then there's the case of Russell Simmons, who we were talking about earlier. There was one case, he sort of seemed to make it go away by saying, no, sorry, I remember this was completely consensual. Sorry if I misread the situation, but you agreed to it. The end. I would never do anything like that. And then a bunch of other women came forward saying, yeah, you would. You did it to me. And he's kind of been in hiding ever since. Those are the grayer areas. But let's rewind and take a look at what's going on with this potential Supreme Court justice. Christine Ford, professor at Palo Alto University in California, came forward with a sexual assault allegation against Kavanaugh last week. She's supposed to testify this Thursday. Deborah Ramirez has made allegations of sexual misconduct against Kavanaugh, not yet part of that hearing. Both of them have called for FBI investigations into their allegations. Now, Republicans have denied that request, saying that the FBI cannot judge the credibility of the allegations. Democrats are arguing that the investigators would be more of a nonpartisan, fact-finding bunch of folks than anything else in this situation. The accusation that Ford leveled against Kavanaugh was that at a high school party in the 80s, he held her down and attempted to force himself on her, covering her mouth to quiet her protests. These allegations were documented in notes taken by her therapist in sessions from 2012 and 2013. She told the New Yorker, or Ramirez told the New Yorker rather, that Kavanaugh exposed himself to her during a group drinking game at a freshman year college party at Yale. The White House has completely stood by Kavanaugh. He's denied the allegations. They say they're sticking with him. Kavanaugh is looking to get confirmed quick, smart. And Senate Republicans have been pushing to get him confirmed quick, smart before the fall, before the midterm elections. Now, this obviously invites the idea that this is sort of a last-ditch Democratic attempt to hold up the confirmation. But this is where the confirmation process stands. Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee said that they're going to hold a public hearing Thursday, the 27th, this coming Thursday at 10 a.m. for both Ford and Kavanaugh to testify. Republicans have agreed that Ford would not be in the same room as Kavanaugh, and there would only be one camera in the room. Ford's lawyers object, but Republicans said that they would bring in an outside lawyer to question Ford. According to the Daily Beast, Republicans are looking at former New Hampshire Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte, I think that's how you pronounce her name, to serve as outside counsel. Now, here's the thing. You might be all in on Kavanaugh. You might think he's the worst thing ever to happen to our judicial process. But either way, trust me on this one, what happens on the 27th, you want it to happen. Why? We'll get into that next.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Here you go. If you are pro-Kavanaugh, if you are anti-Kavanaugh, doesn't matter. You should be informed. These are sort of, I suppose, what you would call the Republican arguments against accuser number 2. Remember, there's still accuser number 3, according to Michael Avenatti, allegedly waiting in the wings. But let's talk about Deborah Ramirez. Here's the thing. The White House not so much backing down. Last night, the press office put out a statement noting the lines in the New Yorker piece about this, including Kavanaugh's denial. Kavanaugh said this alleged event from 35 years ago did not happen. The people who knew me then know this did not happen and have said so. This is a smear, plain and simple. I look forward to testifying on Thursday about the truth and defending my good name and the reputation for character and integrity I have spent a lifetime building against these last-minute allegations. That's what he has to say about the whole situation. Now, from the White House release, the accuser, Deborah Ramirez, admits in the New Yorker's piece that there were significant gaps in her memories about the event. She was at first hesitant to speak publicly, partly because her memories contained gaps because she had been drinking at the time of the alleged incident. Remember, this was part of a drinking game. Ramirez acknowledged that there are significant gaps in her memories of the evening. By the New Yorker's own admission, Ramirez was reluctant to speak with certainty on the allegation. In her initial conversations with the New Yorker, she was reluctant to characterize Kavanaugh's role in the alleged incident with certainty. It took 6 days of assessing her memories for Ramirez to say that she recalled Kavanaugh committing the alleged incident, and that came only after consulting with an attorney provided by Democrats. So, not exactly the most balanced source. Said after 6 days of carefully assessing her memories and consulting with her attorney, Ramirez said that she felt confident enough of her recollections. By the way, if you are on the left of this argument, I'm just reporting some facts here. If you're getting steamed, trust me on this one. You're going to want to stay with me. Anyways, the argument, the pro-Kavanaugh argument against this piece in the New Yorker that basically constitutes a second allegation against Kavanaugh, the argument is that the New Yorker has admitted they haven't confirmed through eyewitnesses that Kavanaugh was even present at the party where he allegedly, during a drinking game, took his junk out and put it in her face. That's the allegation. And other students who knew Kavanaugh said they never heard of the incident. The New Yorker hasn't confirmed with other eyewitnesses that Kavanaugh was present at the party. In a statement, 2 of those male classmates who Ramirez alleged were involved in the incident, the wife of a third male student she said was involved, and 3 other classmates, Dino Ewing, Louisa Gary, and Dan Murphy, all disputed her account of events. They said, "We were the closest to Brett Kavanaugh during his first year at Yale. He was a roommate to some of us, and we spent a great deal of time with him, including in the dorm where this incident allegedly took place. Some of us were also friends with Debbie Ramirez during and after her time at Yale, and we can say with confidence that if the incident Debbie alleges ever occurred, we would have seen or heard about it. We did not." Now, those classmates said that the allegations in the story would be completely out of character for Kavanaugh as well. The behavior she describes would be completely out of character for Brett, in their own words, quote unquote. A former student who was best friends with Ramirez said that she never told her about the incident despite how close they were. The former friend, who is married to the male classmate alleged to be involved and who signed the statement, said of Ramirez, "This is a woman I was best friends with. We shared intimate details of our lives, and I was never, ever told this story by her or by anyone else. It never came up. I didn't see it. I never heard of it happening." So there you go. There's some compelling stuff in there with regard to the truthfulness of Deborah Ramirez's account of a drinking game where Kavanaugh allegedly got his junk out and waved it around, possibly putting it in her face. Unbecoming behavior, for sure. And something that would absolutely constitute sexual assault. But, man, there's a lot of variables there, aren't there? There's a lot of question marks with regard to this account. Now look, we live in a day and age where the Me Too movement has come along because it was necessary for the longest time. For the longest time. People, mostly women, did not feel comfortable speaking up about their sexual assaults, about times they had been violated, about times lines had been crossed, no matter what that line was. I'll never forget, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show in the past. Maybe you listened to this story before, maybe you didn't, but it always bears repeating. Back in the day when I was a kid, I had a friend, really, really dear friend, who was a little older than me, and she was tough, and she was strong, and she was so cool, man. She kind of, in a lot of ways, was incredibly street smart and helped me figure out the mean streets of London when I was a wet behind the ears punk rock kid. This was a person who I never could have imagined in any way, shape, or form being weak or not standing up for herself. She took no guff from anyone. And I don't even remember how it came up. I don't remember how this conversation came up. I don't recall what precipitated this conversation. But we were talking about this sort of thing, about sexual assault, about women being put in difficult situations, whether they be social or sexual or any of the above. And this dear friend of mine, this tough, smart, street smart woman, who, like I said, kind of helped me figure out the mean streets of London a little bit, told me in conversation, and we'd been friends for a while and it had never come up, told me in conversation that she'd been raped at knife point. And I was aghast. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, what? Raped at knife point? That's absolutely crazy. And she was like, yeah, it's definitely the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I was like, well, I would hope so. I mean, I don't know what I'm saying, but I would hope that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your life. That's the worst thing that should ever happen to anybody in their life. What'd you do? And I'll never forget the answer. Nothing. She didn't tell anyone. It was something that she told very few people. I think I was maybe one of 3 people she had this conversation with. And it had happened several years previously. And I was like, why didn't you tell anyone? And she was like, it's difficult. He was a person that I'd known and I'd trusted, and friends and even family of mine had known and trusted. I just felt like I couldn't do anything, or it hurt too many people, or nothing would ever come of it if I told people what had happened. Raped at knife point. And she stayed quiet about it for all those reasons. And it made me think a couple different things. I was like, we've got to do something. You got to go to the police now. She's like, I can't. I don't even know where to find him. I had lost touch years and years ago. I was like, you saw him after that? She's like, oh, yeah. I was like, that's so bizarre. That's so weird to me. I can't imagine that this tough, strong woman who never took any guff from anyone would have been put in this situation by this man. And then he would get away with it scot-free and even see her in social situations around other people. And it blew my mind, and it made me understand that these things were not in any way, shape, or form as simple as they should be, i.e. somebody does something wrong, somebody else says something, and they have to deal with the consequence. That's how it should work, but it's not how it does work. And it made me think about why that is the case. Why is that the case? And there's something about, and I don't understand it, hashtag not a doctor, not a psychologist. I don't understand it. I couldn't tell you that much about it, but I do know it exists. There's something about people who victimize and the way they select their victims. There's something about people who would victimize, who would assault, who would cross lines, who would cross boundaries, who would do this sort of thing, where somehow they know, or they have an idea, they have a sense of who's going to let them get away with it and why. And I can't even begin to picture or imagine how or why this works. I don't know. I don't know how a predator finds its prey and manages to select it, knowing that in many ways, it's defenseless and won't fight back in the right way. Because if you looked at this woman on paper, this friend of mine on paper, you would have thought that she would be the last person to ever allow this to go unpunished. But she did. And to this day, still has. Dealt with all sorts of repercussions from it. Too numerous to list and not fair to her to go into. But there is something that exists in terms of the type of person that would do this and the way they select their victims, where they can find people who would keep quiet for days, months, weeks, years, decades, until the point where people go, duh, why are you bringing this up now? This was 35 years ago. Wouldn't you would have said something to someone at the time? I was your best friend. I think I would have known. So there are all sorts of reasonable assertions of doubt with regard to the accusations. About whether or not she remembers, about whether or not she would have told friends around them, about whether or not it would have made its way around the Yale dorm if Kavanaugh whipped his junk out and put it in her face, constituting sexual assault. There's all these doubts about how much water these accusations hold. And you know what? Those doubts should be listened to, should be heard, and should be accepted. And they're not the be-all, end-all. They're nothing definitive. Nobody knows except for the people who are there. And even then, the human memory is a dicey and selective thing. But whether you are pro-Kavanaugh or anti-Kavanaugh, what's happening on Thursday, Kavanaugh testifying on Thursday, is something that we, the American people, want. Because if you're an anti-Kavanaugh type, well then, you want these accusations heard. And if you're pro-Kavanaugh, you want him properly cleared. You want him to enter his position in the Supreme Court with unimpeachable integrity. And no matter who you are in America, the people in these positions, the people whose salaries we pay with our hard-earned tax dollars, we need, no matter who we are, whose side we're on, and what we believe, we need to be as sure as we possibly can. Which is why every single American, whether they're pro or anti-Kavanaugh, should be pro what's happening this Thursday.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio! Radio! 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me.
So James Woods has to be done acting, right? I mean, he has to be. If you're like me, whenever a person is like James Woods, and it doesn't matter which side of the political argument they fall down on, whenever they're screaming and shouting and ranting and raving about things like this, I kind of stop taking them seriously. I kind of stop being able to believe them as whatever character they're trying to portray on the big or little screen. I think that's one of the things that I always liked about Leonardo DiCaprio. He never really sort of gave you much inkling as to what was going on in his life, what sort of person he was. He just sort of showed up on screen and acted. And for that reason, I was able to buy into the characters that he was playing. Now, I don't know if the same could be said, but for a long time, he did a really good job of not revealing too much about himself. trying to think. Other than he bathes in a constant stream of hot and cold running supermodels, I don't know too much about him. So I think I'd still be able to buy into him as a character. But man, that ship has sailed for James Woods. For those that don't know, James Woods, if you didn't follow him on Twitter, he is totally right-wing, and he's really, really, really invested in politics. Just about everything he posts is either pro-Trump or anti-Democrat. Maybe he's trying to start up a second career as a political type or a pundit or something of that nature. But like I said, gets in the way of me being able to enjoy him in any kind of film role. Like even now, if I watched anything that he was in retroactively, I'd just be like, there's that ranting political guy. It stops you from buying into whatever character they're playing. But he got locked out of Twitter. He just got locked out of his own account for posting something that violated Twitter's rules. Now, it was a meme that supposedly came from Democrats, encouraging Democratic men to stay home for the midterms and let the women do all the voting. In his tweet, Woods acknowledged that the meme was most likely phony, but he added, quote, "Pretty scary that there is a distinct possibility this could be real. In this day and age of absolute liberal insanity, it is at least possible." Since the meme was not only phony, but also an attempt to influence the elections, Twitter locked Woods out until he removes it, which he is now refusing to do. He says, quote, "Free speech is free speech. Having your voice smothered is much more disturbing than having your vocal cords slit." This is where you can tell he was an actor, not a writer. "If you want to kill my free speech, man up and slit my throat with a knife. Don't smother me with a pillow." Okay. He also thinks he's being targeted because he's a conservative that has a large following. All right, then. I mean, the bottom line is this. People are coming after Twitter, after Facebook, after Apple, after Google, after all these digital platforms that have decided they don't want anything to do with Alex Jones and saying, this is the end of free speech. No, it's not. This is not a free speech issue. We've talked about this over and over again on the show. I don't know about this people don't get. This has nothing to do with the idea of free speech. It's not a free speech issue. It's a free trade issue. Within the boundaries of the law, these companies, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or Google or Apple, have the right to do what the hell they want. Within the boundaries of the law, they have the right to offer their platform up to the people they want. They have no obligation to anyone but themselves and their shareholders. Now, all of them have been really good about saying they're not partisan. All of them have been really good about saying, hey, you know, we're not going to squash conservative voices, but we won't tolerate hate speech. Here's the thing. It's nice of them to do that, but in no way, shape, or form are they obligated to do that. They are not elected officials, the folks that run Facebook and Twitter and Google and Instagram and Apple and all of these things. Our tax dollars don't pay for it. All of these things, all of these platforms, which have become massive, humongous parts of our media process, well, they don't need a license to operate. I mean, they need permission to do business. They need to be recognized as companies. They've got to pay taxes. They've got to do all of these things, but they're under no obligation to do anything other than obey the law. And it ends there. People are jumping up and down, calling it the end of free speech, that James Woods has been suspended from Twitter. He says he's being targeted because he's a conservative and has a large following. He said, if you want to kill my free speech, man up and slit my throat with a knife. Don't smother me with a pillow. Like I said, further proof that James Woods is better suited to being an actor than being a writer. But this is the free market. This is where it gets messy. This has nothing to do with anything other than Twitter doing what they see fit. And if they see fit to put James Woods in Twitter jail for as long as they feel like, or until the end of time, then that's what they get to do. And it's very important that we recognize that people are conflating free speech and free trade. This is a distinctly un-American thing. You can't have it both ways. One must take the rough, as the kids say, with the smooth. So, too bad, so sad. I'm sorry, James Woods. This has nothing to do with your free speech, and this has everything to do with Twitter getting to do business however the hell they want to do business.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So what do we know about Michael Avenatti and what he may or may not have on Brett Kavanaugh? Well, you might be listening to this after some more details leaked, but at the time, we don't know a lot other than he says he's got something on him. He has leapt feet first into the fray around Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and the allegations of sexual misconduct and assault that have been leveled against him. And he says he has big explosive information. Now, bear in mind, this is a guy who deals in the salacious. He was Stormy Daniels' representative in her battle with the White House. And he tweeted that he was representing a woman with credible information about Kavanaugh and Mark Judge. A friend of Kavanaugh's, Christine Ford, said Judge was in the room when Kavanaugh allegedly sexually assaulted her while they were in high school. That's how Judge plays into it. Avenatti said that he would be demanding, quote unquote, demanding the opportunity to present testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee and called for Kavanaugh's nomination to be withdrawn. Now, if we are tempering all of this with the right amount of cool-headedness, we will note that, no, who'd heard of Michael Avenatti before this past year just gone by? Answer, nobody. Who's heard about him now? Literally everyone. Is he sort of, in his own way, doing everything he can to be involved in all these things so that he may raise his own profile? Indisputably. Does he have something that we should pay attention to? That is also indisputable. Around the same time that Avenatti started tweeting about all of this, Jane Meyer and Ronan Farrow at The New Yorker published that story, detailing all the allegations from Deborah Ramirez, the second accuser, who said that Kavanaugh got his junk out in front of her during a drinking game while they were in college together and did something that constitutes assault. And here's the thing. A lot of people, for a second, thought, oh, well, Avenatti must be representing Ramirez. No, not even a little bit. Or at least this is what he says. Avenatti tweeted that he was representing this woman with credible information about Kavanaugh and Judge and will demand the opportunity to present testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He said that he would like Judge and others to be subpoenaed to testify and call for Kavanaugh's nomination to be withdrawn. And even though the news about Ramirez's claim broke around the same time Avenatti started tweeting about it, he's clarified that his client wasn't Ramirez. So this is three. This is mounting up. And look, said it before, I will say it again. You might be pro-Kavanaugh, you might be anti-Kavanaugh. Either way, you want him to testify on Thursday. You want anybody who's going to be paid by our tax dollars to be a part of the Supreme Court, to be raked over the hottest of coals. And if Kavanaugh is your guy, if you're all for him, well, you want his position to be unimpeachable. So there's that. It's not totally clear what Avenatti's client says happened, but according to the emails that have been posted, there is quote unquote significant evidence Kavanaugh and Judge were involved in some sort of scheme to gang rape young women in the 1980s. Like we said, Judge is this classmate of Kavanaugh's at Georgetown Prep in Maryland. He's a conservative writer. He's become a bit of an important person with regard to all these Kavanaugh allegations. Ford said he was in the room when Kavanaugh allegedly sexually assaulted her. Judge has previously written about his inebriated pursuits while in high school. And he's referenced Kavanaugh, seemingly. He used the name Bart O'Kavanaugh. But he's also denied the memory of the assault Ford said took place. He also said that he doesn't want to testify before the judiciary panel. Why not? Look, you got to be certain about these things. And it's too bad that these things have come back to haunt you in this way, but guess what? You're not part of American history. Whether you want to or not, the American people have a right to know that those in the Supreme Court that would be paid by their tax dollars have been vetted. Some of Avenatti's suggested questions for the committee to ask Kavanaugh include whether he targeted women for sex or rape at house parties or assisted Judge in doing so, whether he saw men lined up outside bedrooms at parties where a woman was inside as part of a, and I quote, train, and whether he was aware of or tried to stop such incidents. So, there you go. Oh, there's also one interesting detail. Avenatti said the committee should also ask Kavanaugh about an entry in his yearbook that reads the FFFFFF 4th of July, which he believes stands for find them, French them, feel them. I'll let you add in an additional couple of F's, ended by forget them. He also mentions the term the devil's triangle, a phrase that refers to sex between two men and one woman. Now, I would like to, again, point out that Michael Avenatti is a guy that, well, makes this sort of salacious stuff his way to move up in the world. I mean, he's been involved with Stormy Daniels. He's been involved with this, and he's come forward with some pretty grimy details. And we have to bear in mind that nobody knew who the hell Michael Avenatti was this time 2 years ago. Now, literally the entirety of the human population around the globe has a pretty good idea. So could he be using this whole thing as a crutch to further his career, whether it be as a media figure, whether it be as a political figure, whether it be as a lawyer? Yeah, absolutely. Let's not mince words. He has a lot to gain from this whole media circus. And it seems like he's been only too eager to leap into the fray. These are the criticisms that a guy like this is going to face. But should we listen to him? Should we listen to his client? Damn Skippy. Because like I said, and I'll repeat myself because it bears repeating, anybody who's going to be a part of the Supreme Court, anybody at any stage of the political game that is going to make a living off of our tax dollars. We have a right to be sure. And like I said, if you're pro-Kavanaugh all the way or you're anti-Kavanaugh all the way, you want this to happen because you need to be sure. Either way. Horrible, awful thing to accuse a man of sexual assault and rape and all these things that Kavanaugh has been accused of if he's innocent. And he 100% should have an opportunity to defend a reputation that he says he spent a lifetime establishing. He has the right on Thursday to defend himself against these allegations. As we've watched the whole sort of Me Too movement play out over the last year and beyond, like I've said, we've seen people go down in flames that deserve to go down in flames. We've seen people lose everything that deserved to lose everything. We've also seen people turn around and say, no, absolutely not. Forget it. Maynard James Keenan of Tool was accused of rape. He said, nope, there is no evidence. This is garbage. No. And that went away, and it went away quickly. Because while there was a certain amount of smoke, there was not nearly enough for people to think that there was fire, and there was not enough smoke for any legal action to be taken. And then we've seen people lose everything with very little evidence coming into play. People like Garrison Keillor. People who spent a lifetime building something only to watch it go up in a puff of smoke in a matter of 48 hours. Am I saying Garrison Keillor is innocent? No, I'm not. I'm just saying that he was never really afforded an opportunity to defend himself. And also, it's a little telling that, well, no one else has come forward to attack Garrison Keillor. Now, I'm a huge Garrison Keillor fan. I grew up reading his books, and I wanted to believe that this couldn't possibly be true. In my mind, I know I wasn't there, and I can't tell. And it's not for me to say. But I do know that he was offered absolutely no opportunity to defend himself before he went down in flames, and everything that he worked for his entire life went with it. It is so important. It is so important that accusations like these are heard. It is so important that people feel like they will be listened to when they come forward with accusations like these. Doesn't matter if it's regarding an incident that happened yesterday or 35 years ago or beyond. It does not matter. People have been victimized and forced to stay silent for, well, since the dawn of time. And it's shameful to us as a race and as a society that we've taken long enough to evolve to the point where accusations like this will be heard and listened to, as we have. But anyone accused of the things that these folks have been accused of must also get an opportunity to defend themselves. They cannot be tarred and feathered and have their reputation destroyed without having an opportunity to tell their side of the story. And look, if you're gunning for them, if you're after them, if you are accusing them, if you want to see them punished, well, then you need to be sure as well. Which is why the entirety of America and the world should pay very close attention this coming Thursday. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, the time that you and I spend together, it really is the best part of my day every single day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again.